Chapter 1. Will the widower love me like he loved the late wife? Over dinner at their favorite restaurant, David reached into the inside pocket of his blazer and pulled out a small velvet box. "I've been carrying this around for a few days," he said, his voice steady but softer than usual, waiting for the right moment. Emily looked at him, her heart skipping. Her breath caught in her throat as he opened the box to reveal a simple, classic engagement ring. It was timeless and elegant, just like her. "I love you," he said. "You've brought joy and peace back into my life in a way I never thought possible. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Emily stared at him, stunned but smiling. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes!" They embraced across the table. People at nearby tables noticed, clapped, and offered congratulations. It was a picture-perfect moment for Emily, public joy wrapped around something deeply personal. David's hand didn't leave hers for the rest of the night. He beamed. She felt light, giddy, like a teenager again. After a year and a half of dating and talking about the future, the logistics of combining lives, and navigating complexities of his past, getting engaged felt like the most natural next step. However, later that night, after the celebration, when the house was quiet and the buzz had faded, something in Emily shifted. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the ring still on her finger. The proposal had been everything she could have hoped for. David had said all the right things and meant them, yet doubt crept in. David was a good man. He was solid, loyal, and showed up for her in the ways no one else had. He helped around the house, cheered her son at high school basketball games, texted every morning, and called every night when she was out of town. He was kind, dependable, and present. However, he had been married to Susan for 25 years. 2.5 decades of shared experiences, memories, laughter, tears, raising kids, and growing old together. Emily felt she couldn't compete with those shared experiences and hated that her mind went there. What if she were just a second chance for him? You know, a good enough option or a nice next chapter. What if she'd never be the love of his life, no matter how many times he said he loved her? She wasn't looking to erase Susan, but now she was stepping into a role that had already been filled thoroughly, completely, and for a very long time. She wanted to believe David's heart had room for a new forever. She wanted to feel that the love they were building could be just as real and strong. But in the stillness of that night, laying next to the man who had already done this once, one question echoed relentlessly and heavily in her mind. Will he ever love me like he loved her? Emily's question is one many women quietly ask when they're in a serious relationship with a widower. Even when the widower is doing everything right, such as showing up, being present, talking about a future together, and making room in his life and heart for you, there's often a lingering fear that creeps in late at night or in quiet moments. Will our relationship ever measure up to what he had before? If you've asked similar questions, don't worry. Those type of questions and the feelings behind them are normal. In fact, it's one of my clients' most frequently asked questions. However, that's not the question you're trying to answer. You want to know, will he commit to me like he did to her? The question has nothing to do with trying to copy or compete with his first marriage. Instead, it's about whether he wants to build something just as meaningful with you, and whether you're willing to accept anything less than his full love and commitment. One reason you might have these feelings is that the late wife received the title and the vows. There was clarity about her place in his life. She didn't have to wonder if she was the one. She didn't wait around forever hoping he'd call her his wife. He loved her, married her, and built a life with her. If marriage matters, don't apologize for it. If marriage is important to you, own it. Asking for a lifelong commitment isn't asking too much. However, it's critical to know whether the widower can offer you the same level of commitment he gave the late wife. Ask yourself, do I want to be married? Do I want the same depth of commitment as the late wife? Do I want to be more than just a chapter in someone else's story? If the answer is yes, then don't sell yourself short. Stop wondering whether you're asking for too much, because you're not. That means not waiting years for a widower who is capable of being all in once to decide if he can give you that same commitment now. You're not the late wife, and you don't have to be, but that doesn't mean you deserve anything less than she received. If you're starting to doubt yourself, remember, The late wife didn't settle, and neither should you. A widower's second marriage is often better. Even if things are going well and your relationship is heading toward marriage, it's normal to worry about whether you're walking into something that isn't meant for you. This is especially true if the widower's first marriage was good. However, that fear is based on the false belief that love is a competition. It's not. If the widower is ready to love again, he's not sitting there ranking you against his late wife. He's not comparing every gesture, every conversation, and every detail. Most of the time, that pressure to measure up comes from you. If you find yourself making those comparisons, stop it immediately. His first marriage happened at a different time and in a different season of life. You're meeting him where he is now. Relationships are not apples to apples. You're supposed to be you, not a replica. He should love you for who you are, not who you aren't. What surprises many women, and even widowers themselves, is that a widower's second marriage can often be better than the first. That's not a knock on his late wife or their marriage, it's just reality. Widowers' second marriages that work, really work, often do so because he has more clarity. He's older and wiser, and has had time to reflect on what worked and what didn't the first time. He's less likely to settle, more willing to walk away from red flags, and more focused on what matters in a marriage. My second marriage. Better, worse, or the same? I had a good marriage to my late wife, Krista. We loved each other and did our best to build a life together. Like all marriages, it wasn't perfect. Our most significant source of tension came from one place: her parents. Krista had a complicated, borderline codependent relationship with her folks. They were always calling, asking for money, and weighing in on things that weren't their business. Krista tried to set boundaries, but they never stuck because she didn't want to upset them. That dynamic caused more fights in our marriage than I can count. After she passed, I eventually started dating again. I made a quiet promise to myself that I would never marry someone who had a similar relationship with her family. Once was enough. When Juliana and I got serious, I kept that vow in mind. I didn't bring up my history with Krista's family because I wanted to see Juliana's relationship with her parents for myself. After I met them, I watched, listened, and paid close attention to how she talked about and acted around her mom, dad, and sisters. I also noticed how they treated her and, most importantly, whether they respected her life and boundaries. If I had seen red flags or sensed even a hint of the same issues I dealt with before, I would have ended the relationship with Juliana, no matter how much I loved her. That's how serious I was about not repeating the same mistake twice. Thankfully, Juliana's family turned out to be the opposite of what I had known. There was no drama, no guilt trips, or daily power plays. Even though her parents were wary of our relationship at first because I was recently widowed, they respected Juliana's decision to decide for herself whether this relationship was right for her. When she decided it was, they supported our decision and, after we wed, let us live our own lives. Best of all, I get along with them fabulously. That one difference alone makes this marriage feel easier, healthier, and frankly better than the one I had before. I've coached many widowers over the years who, once they tied the knot, felt the same way about their second marriages. The ones in the strongest, happiest second marriages usually say something like, "This time is better." The improvement isn't because they love their current wife more than their late wife, but because they were more intentional when they dated. They knew themselves better, what they needed in this stage of life, and what they couldn't go through again. They didn't settle or assume love would be enough. They were upfront about their deal breakers and walked away from relationships that didn't align with their long-term needs. They dated with their eyes wide open, not wide shut, and because of that, their second marriages are more grounded, peaceful, and fulfilling than their first. So yes, my marriage to Juliana is better, not because Krista wasn't a good wife or wonderful person. The difference is that I grew. I learned what I could and couldn't live with and stuck to that. The result? I married a woman whose values and family dynamic aligned with the kind of life I knew I wanted the second time around. Go and do likewise. Most of you who are reading this are either divorced or widowed. Others have had a long-term partnership that didn't end the way you wanted. Whatever your past relationship history, you've learned some hard-earned lessons. Don't ignore them. Think about what worked and what didn't. Based on your experience, what are your must-haves and deal breakers this time? Are you dating with intention now, or are you compromising, convincing yourself that he'll eventually change or come around? Lessons mean nothing if you don't apply them. Ask yourself, were you once with someone who couldn't give you his heart? Are you heading down that same road again? Did you waste years in a push-pull relationship with someone who kept you guessing? Are you tolerating that behavior now, hoping this time it'll turn out differently? Were you with a man who couldn't meet your emotional needs? Are you settling again because he's a widower? If you want this marriage, or any future relationship, to be better than the one you had before, you must be just as intentional as the widowers who found happiness again. That means setting clear expectations, drawing firm boundaries, and being willing to walk away if the widower you're dating can or won't give you what you need. This doesn't mean expecting perfection, but refusing to repeat mistakes. Take ownership of your choices now to avoid another one-sided relationship, heartbreak, or regret. Know your deal breakers, stick to them, and don't apologize for wanting a healthy, wholehearted partnership the second time. However, you only get a good marriage if you learn from past mistakes and walk away when red flags and deal breakers arise. How to build something real. When you marry a widower, you're not stepping into a Hollywood movie. You're stepping into real life with all its ups and downs, arguments, late nights, bills, health scares, job stress, and unexpected moments of joy. It's two imperfect people doing their best and choosing to show up for each other every day. So stop asking yourself whether your marriage will be as good as the one you had before. That question will eat you alive. Instead, ask yourself, will we make each other the priority? Will we keep showing up even when it's hard? Will we build something honest, healthy, and real? Because that's what matters. The comparison game ends the moment you stop looking backward and start focusing on the life you're creating together. When both of you are committed to building something new, rooted in the present, and aimed towards the future, there's no room for ghosts. The late wife's memory no longer haunts your marriage because your energy goes into this relationship. You don't have to be better than her. You don't have to win. Your marriage doesn't have to be better than the one he shared with his late wife. It just needs to be yours. That's what makes it real and ultimately successful. Questions to ask yourself. Does he want to be married, or am I staying in this relationship hoping he'll eventually come around? Is the widower making space for me in his life and heart, or am I stuck in the shadow of his past? Am I measuring myself against a ghost, or focusing on the relationship we're building now? What did I learn from my last serious relationship, good or bad, and am I applying those lessons now? Do I know what my deal breakers are? More importantly, am I honoring them? Am I dating with eyes wide open or ignoring red flags because I want things to work out? Am I afraid to walk away even when I know I'm not getting what I need? Are we building something honest, present, and rooted in mutual commitment, or am I carrying the emotional load alone? Finally, ask yourself one more question. Do I believe I deserve the same love, devotion, and commitment that the late wife had? Because you do. If he's the right man, he'll give it to you fully, freely, and without hesitation. Karen's story. Compared to some women who date and marry widowers, I've had it pretty easy. Within the first 6 months of our courtship, my guy put away the pictures of the late wife, dealt with a couple of other bothersome widower issues, and convinced me that I held the number one spot in his heart. Here was a widower who was ready to start a new life with a new person. But was I? Was I ready to marry a widower? This was the question I asked myself when my guy proposed. Our progression from dating to cohabitation to marriage spanned about 3 years, so there was plenty of time to come to grips with widower realities that remained after his fairly few and benign widower issues had been put to bed. For example, my husband's late wife comes up in conversation from time to time, and I occasionally come upon her personal belongings. Years after her death, My husband is still shuffling through insurance bills from her long and complicated illness. Catalogs and other pieces of mail arrive with her name on them. There is a gravestone inscribed with both her name and his. I pored through the entire inventory of these widower realities with soul-scraping honesty and realized I could live with them just fine. Either these things had ceased to spook me the way they used to, or they had never yanked my chain to begin with. But there was more to the question. Was I ready to marry a widower? My husband cared deeply for his first wife, so I knew I was never going to be his one and only true love. Could I be happy as the true love of this chapter of his life? Was I ready to stop making comparisons between myself and the late wife, between our marriage and theirs, comparisons that my husband and his family would never dream of making? Was I ready to put his widowerhood in perspective as a significant part of his past, but not the thing that defined him or our relationship? These were my widower issues, not his. Luckily, all I had to do to resolve them was this: stop thinking about the questions and start appreciating the fact that this man was already giving me more than I could ever ask for in a future spouse. Now that we are married, my guy continues to be the whole enchilada and then some. Every day he offers me affection, loyalty, friendship, and romance. He also provides me with daily doses of humor, intelligence, and fun. And on really good days, he spoils me with his tasty fried chicken. Like I said, I've had it pretty easy.